So step 3, route details. It is really, really important to ensure that the route details are as specific as both the regulator and the road manager needs them to be. So I'm going to talk through both a single route and an area application today, and I'm going to be quite thorough in showing you all of the mapping functionality, all of the details we need in order for it to be a complete application and to really avoid the additional information requests. So ensuring that the correct route type is selected, so that means single route versus area. Ensuring that there is an exact start and finish location. Ensuring that it is the correct turn-by-turn description, and ensuring that you have included the necessary heavy vehicle bypasses. So I'm going to return back to my application demonstration in my training environment of the NHVR portal, and you can see here I'm at step 3 of the application, which is the route details. Here we have some tabs underneath this particular step. We've got the plan tab, the roads tab, the layers tab, and the confirm or confirmation tab. It's just about making your way through each single one of these tabs. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to give a demonstration today on the single route and on the area. So I'll first do a single route. A single route means that it is a heavy vehicle combination that does not have access to a network. A network, whether it's a permitted network on an issued permit or a approved network under a notice. So if you don't have access to that, it needs to be an exact start, an exact finish, an exact turn-by-turn description for it to be a single route. Now, a single route, you have 2 options really as to how you plot the exact start and the exact finish. If you have the exact street address, you can just come down the bottom here and into the start address, you can type 76 and the address that it may be. And it's really, really important that you are typing it in. And then, of course, you must select it from the drop-down list in order for the map to actually accept that as a point. So you can see there, it's just dropped it. If you're wondering, 76 Skyring Terrace is where the NHVR office is. So just using an address I know off the top of my head. So you can see there, it's literally by typing and selecting the waypoint over here towards the left side of the page, it has literally dropped that point right in the middle of that block. Now, sometimes that is not necessarily the exact access point. So before I come back to that and talk a little bit further about the exact start and finish addresses, I just want to make sure I'm actually got a finish address. So once again, I can type in the address into point number 2, or if I can visually locate it on the map, I can come across to the left side here, some functionality towards the bottom left-hand corner of the map, and select on the little waypoint set icon. If I select on that, and it is going to turn blue, which lets me know it's activated, I can then zoom out of my map, maybe locate somewhere in New South Wales, turn on my satellite view. Maybe this looks like it's something, so maybe I need to go here, and I'm going to drop my point right there. So as you can see here, it is calculating the route, and I now have my first point and my second point. So this isn't really a common route for an SPV crane, but if we were looking at a low loader or an oversized over mass combination, you probably will start to see more commonly the quite long distance single routes. So now that I've got a start and I've got a finish point, I need to revisit both point 1 and 2 to make sure it is an exact location. So instead of zooming in and out on your map, you can come across to this left side here where you've got waypoint 1 and 2. And by selecting on waypoint 1, it's actually going to shortcut and zoom me right into point number 1 there. The same if I need quick access to go to point number 2, Selecting on number 2 over here towards the left will shortcut me and take me right to that point. So back to point number 1. So ensuring it is the exact start and finish. The first thing we need to make sure is, you can see on the map here, as I was saying earlier, by typing in the point over here, it's just put the point right in the middle of that block. The line also is just the shortest possible route. So there's actually no intelligence behind this routing line as of yet. We are working on a future portal enhancement that we are very keen to get in the portal, but unfortunately at the moment that routing line between point 1 and point 2 is just the shortest possible route, so it's not really the most preferred route for a heavy vehicle combination, so it's also something to be conscious of. So I actually need to make sure that I am dragging that point there to the exact access point. Okay, now sometimes you will actually see that it's taken you the wrong road. So if my address is actually Skyring Terrace, I need to make sure that I'm dragging that point all the way back to the driveway or to the gate, to the access point. And you can see there it's recalculating and it's actually changed the roads I need. So that's very, very important. If I didn't update that, I would have got a permit for Longland Street when really I need access to Skyring Terrace. So very, very important that you are then dragging that point back to the road and visually showing us the access point to that location. Now you'll notice here, back to my point description on the left side of my map here, instead of 76 Skyring Terrace, it has now changed the number. Okay, not to worry, because I can actually update this description here without changing the point on the map. Okay, so this is where I can start to add in the extra detail that we need as the regulator and as the road manager to correctly assess your application. So I'm going to select on the little pencil or the pen icon here, and I can update to the correct number. If I wanted to put in the company name, or maybe I want to put in access to the quarry, not that it's an actual quarry here in Brisbane City, but that is the level of detail we need at the regulator in order to assess your application. An exact finish and exact start and finish location must have a street number or a company name or a visual access point. As an example, access to the quarry, access to the port, access to the forestry, access to the development site, whatever it is we can turn on the satellite view and visually see, or a distance measurement. Okay, so if you're quite rural and there's no street number, there's no company name because you're just going to a farm, we'll also accept a distance measurement from an earlier intersection. And unfortunately, because you're not able to put that detail on the map, you can actually come in here after you've made sure, so it's very important that you put visually on the map first the point to the correct location, so dragging the point around, making sure that making sure that it is at the correct location, and then you can come across, select the little pencil icon and add in that additional detail. Or fix up the detail that is there. Okay. Another example I like to use, maybe the address is 76 Skyring Terrace, but maybe you do need access via Longland Road. Okay, so any additional information that is going to make more sense to the regulator and to the road manager as to what we're visually seeing, and selecting OK. Now you want to go to the last point that you see here on the left and do exactly the same thing. So it's exactly what we need for the exact start and the exact finish location. This time, if we turn on either our hybrid or our satellite view and zoom out, we can visually see on the map here that we're accessing a quarry or a private road into a quarry. So once again, I need to make sure that I'm dragging and dropping my point to get it as close as I can to the correct access visually on the map. And then I need to jump in here to the left side of the map and update that detail, again, utilizing the little pencil icon. So maybe it's not unnamed road, maybe it's quarry road. And here, access to the quarry. Or maybe you know the official name of that quarry or of that mine, you can add that in there as well and selecting OK. Now that is, as I said earlier, the level of detail the regulator and the road manager needs in order to correctly assess your application. It is therefore the detail that is going to end up on your issued permit document. So from a compliance point of view, we definitely need to make sure your permit is getting you the access you need. So visually on the map and also correctly identifying those start and finish locations. Okay, I'm just going to turn back to my road map view because it's a little bit easier to see, and zooming back out to see my entire route. So at this point in time, I've got in my first point, I've got in my last point, I've made sure that detail is very, very accurate. A question we hear a lot at the NHVR is, why is that route line different colours? So the reason it's different colours is because it is representing to the viewer here the different affected road managers. So if I zoom into point number 2 here, every road here, as it changes colour, is representing a different road manager. So something that the regulator will fix up if those details are incorrect, but just from a customer's point of view, the reason why the colours are different is because it's trying to identify the multiple different road managers that are affected by your route. Okay, so at the moment, it's probably, we're not finished yet, but it's probably a good idea to save at the bottom of the page as you go. Now, as I said earlier, by putting in point 1 and point 2 into the mapping system as it currently is, it is just connecting those 2 points the quickest possible way. So if I was in my car and I put into my GPS these exact 2 points, it is going to give me the exact same shortest possible route as you see here in the portal. So at the moment, there is no intelligence behind the routing line, and it is not the preferred heavy vehicle route, what you see there. Okay, so the customer is responsible for assessing their route prior to submitting their application and prior to travelling. So you are in charge of this turn-by-turn description. So if I now navigate to my Layers tab, you can see here Layers tab, or on my menu in the top right corner, which also gives me some layer options here. But I do find it easier to select on the Layers tab and to navigate through here. The first thing I want to do is show all layers. So the little tick box at the bottom, show all layers. Now it's here that I can turn on the state road network, or even though I'm a non-complying oversize over mass vehicle, I may wish to select the national multi-state notice network, okay, and try and stick to that as much as I can. The biggest one I want to demonstrate for you today is the heavy vehicle bypasses. So you've got a layer in here, bypasses. If we tick that, it's a little bit hard to see zoomed out, but especially in New South Wales, and if I just zoom into Dubbo here, you can see we've got this we've got a brown routing line there, okay, which is the preferred heavy vehicle bypass for that particular council. Now what that means is I'm going to select on that brown section, okay, so I've got Thompson Street. If higher than 5 metres, so if I'm a heavy vehicle combination that is higher than 5 metres, I need to ensure that I'm utilising that heavy vehicle bypass. So all of the bypasses will have their own information as to what triggers the heavy vehicle to utilise that bypass. So as the customer, you need to make sure that you are, especially for Class 1 applications, assessing that information and ensuring you are utilising the heavy vehicle bypasses. So I'm just going to zoom into Parks here, which is a very good example. We need to utilise this heavy vehicle bypass. Now, in order to make my route go the way as indicated by the heavy vehicle bypass layer. You can see my routing line is this blue line here. I need to drag and drop, which is therefore going to create, and I'll just jump back to my plan tab, it's going to create some additional waypoint sets. Okay, and maybe I need to complete this multiple times in order for it to stick to the roads I need it to stick to. You can see it's calculating, so just give it a few seconds to reroute. Okay, so far so good. Point 2, 3, it's sticking to the brown layer. Going to select and drag and drop again. It's calculating, so giving it just a few seconds. So it doesn't matter how many times you need to select this drag and drop functionality. The most important thing is that you're getting that route line to go the way it needs to go. And in regards to the exact and very specific detail, we only need that detail for the very first point and the very last point. So whatever it picks up in between here, the regulator and the road manager has been educated to see that they are really only points in order to get the routing line to go the way it needs to go. Okay, so we can see there I've now stuck to the heavy vehicle bypasses. The same functionality would apply, just say it's gone the wrong way. So in Forbes, even though it's not a heavy vehicle bypass, I do need it to stick on the main highway. So once again, just dragging and dropping. Okay, and it's going to recalculate the route, as you can sort of see there. It's calculating, giving it a few seconds, and it is just rerouted that one there. Okay, so it's very, very important, and it is the responsibility of the customer to make sure that you are submitting the correct turn-by-turn description. Okay, so utilising that drag and drop functionality. So just as a bit of a tick list here, for a single trip, you put in the exact start, the exact finish, the exact turn-by-turn description. Okay, utilising that drag and drop functionality and the ability there to add in additional level of details by utilising that little pencil icon. It's also really, really important that if you are utilising the drag and drop functionality, just have a quick check of these points at a bit of a closer zoom in, just to make sure you haven't picked up any sort of additional not required roads. Okay, so maybe that even means just tidying it up a bit and bringing it back to the middle of the road there. Okay, the issue with that is if we have accidentally from a distance just put the point in a different spot there, it can really affect the road, and it may pick up not required roads, which once again could lead to an additional information request. So just making sure that you do have a quick check at those points and just make sure that they are not picking up any not required roads. Okay, so exact start, exact finish. We've got an exact turn-by-turn description, including any heavy vehicle bypasses, or just making sure that the route line is going the way it needs to go. Before I can move on to the next part of my application, I need to come across to this Confirm tab. You've got a little tick box in here that you must select before you submit your application, and that just states, I confirm that the list of roads and associated route nodes accurately defines my route requirements for this application. So that's just ensuring that the customer knows that the complete responsibility and the details provided in this application are accurate and exactly what you need to do with the heavy vehicle movement. Above that field is route nodes. Now, this is only one of few free text field in the application process. I always give the perspective to customers and even to road managers when they need to complete details or are submitting information, but from a customer's point of view, the regulator and the road manager only sees this application, okay? So if you want to provide additional information, and I definitely recommend it that you do, if you do have additional information to give, please utilise this free text field here. It's got heaps of space, okay? So the regulator, once this application is submitted, they'll go through this information. They'll just make sure it's valid and will actually assist the road manager with their application. But if you also need to identify anything to the regulator, by all means, utilising this free text notes field. Okay, so that's everything you need to know for a single route. Before we continue, I'm just going to demonstrate now for an area application. So single route and an area. Now, an area of operation is an area application is a heavy vehicle combination that can access an approved network, whether it's under notice or a permitted network on an issued permit, but it's roads essentially to and from the approved network. Now, an area application, and I've just flipped over there and you can see it's given me a blank slate. You can only have one local council area per area application. So in New South Wales here, I'm just going to go into Sydney. So really this is where you'll consider if you already have access to an approved network. So going over across to my layers tab, coming down to the OSIM networks, and I might turn on my SPV level 1 approved network. Just a quick point as well, the networks in my training environment here may not be accurate, so this isn't the true network, but just as a quick example. So really it's going to be roads to and from the approved network for one particular local council area. So the first thing I need to do after selecting area is putting in the council that I'm actually going to be applying for. So unfortunately in my training environment today, I don't have the real councils, they're just all dummy councils. But once you put that in there, I can then essentially zoom into my area. So I'm in the Randwick area. Once again, you can type in the address here, but really when it comes to that area, roads to and from the approved network, it really is, in my opinion, a little bit easier to come across here, selecting the little waypoint set icon, selecting it, and it turns blue, which means it's activated. And then I can start just to go network. So from the network, selecting a point to the network. So I've just created one waypoint set there. Okay. Now, if I continue to select, once again, another point from the network, it's created another waypoint set. So I can continue to do this now, selecting 1 to 2, 1 to 2, and so on and so forth. So you already have access to the approved network. This is really further improving that access that you have. Okay. Of course, by all means, you do need to make sure that it's roads that you do need access to. But just as an example here, I'm just going to continue to click to create waypoint sets. Now, once I am done selecting the roads, before I continue, I do recommend returning back to this waypoint set, selecting it and deactivating it, just so I can now click and move around my map. If that was still activated, it would continue to drop points, which is very irritating. So just remembering to come back there and deactivate the waypoint set. Now you can see here on the left side of my map, I can revisit all of my waypoint sets. So waypoint set 1, waypoint set 2, and waypoint set 3, which is just essentially the different roads to and from the approved network, or essentially from roads that are connecting to the network. Okay. So we can very much see there visually, it's just the approved network to the approved network, so that's fine. We can see there visually, once again, that it's the approved network down to the intersection where it meets the other requested road. We can see here on waypoint set 3, and I'm just going to select into that now. Okay, so it's actually this route. It's a little bit hard to see, but I've put point 1 here. It is then kicked out and travelled down here. So as long as I am selected on that point, I can once again select, drag and drop to get this routing line for this particular set to go the way it needs to go. So once again, my starting point is just the intersection connecting to the previous road, but continuing down now, I might need to do this a few times, as I said before, just to make sure the route is going the way it needs to go. And then I might have my end address and just moving that point. Now, this is where things get very, very similar to the single route. If it is going to be a location, as you see there, that doesn't visually connect to an approved network or a previous requested road, we will need it to be an exact start or finish location. So an exact start or finish location, to repeat again, must either have a number, a street number, or a company name, or a visual access point. For example, access to the quarry, access to the port, access to the development site. Something that we at the regulator or for the road manager can turn on their satellite view and visually see that that is a location that a heavy vehicle would be accessing. Or if you cannot fit into any of those other options, we also accept a distance measurement. So this time I'm going to show you our measurement tool on the map. So if you come down to the bottom left of your map, you have this little square. If you look very, very closely, I'm sure it's got little rulers on it. If you run your cursor over that, it says measure distance and areas and create new measurement. So now on the map, I'm going to select at the intersection, drag it out to where my endpoint is, which isn't too far. Double click on the map to finish, and it's told me there that it is 38 meters or 0.04 kilometers. So now I can actually utilize that measurement, come down to my point here, update that detail utilizing the little pencil icon, and I can actually put in the bottom here, approximately, let's just say 40 meters from, and for example, Orange Road. And maybe 44 is not correct, so I can remove that as long as I have the distance measurement and select OK. So now I have that exact finished location, which is what we need to have that additional level of detail that's really going to avoid any information requests. Okay, so that is roads to and from the approved network. Now, unfortunately, I am getting this little red button here that is, information banner that is saying I've actually plotted roads outside of my designated area road manager field that I completed here. In my training environment, because it's a little bit confused with the fake accounts we have in there to the mapping information, that's why I'm getting this message. But as long as, just say I'm within Randwick City Council and I've nominated Randwick here, as long as I've plotted roads within that council, it is going to accept it. Now, if I plot roads outside of that council, it will give me this little red banner and it won't allow me to submit my application. It does give me this little generate button. So if I've plotted all over Sydney, I've gone over multiple different councils, I can then hit that generate button. It is going to automatically spit out one draft application per council that I've affected. So it's just a bit of a shortcut process if that's what you need to do for your application. And then from there, you can go into your application tracker, enter into those draft applications, and then proceed to submit and pay and make sure all of the information is correct. Okay, so that's just what that information banner means, and that's what that generate button functionality and how you can utilize it. Okay, but for an area, as I said, roads to and from the approved network, you need to make sure that you actually have access to that approved network, either under notice or via an issued permit document. But then, of course, you can utilize that selecting and creating waypoint sets, roads to and from the approved network, making sure that they're accurate and making sure that if you do have any points like this point number 4 here that is sort of not connecting to anything, you need to make sure that it is an exact start and finish location. Once again, for an area application, once you've entered all of these details under the Plan tab, you will need to come to the Confirm tab, once again selecting that you confirm that you're responsible as the customer for the details that you have mapped here and that they are accurate and that they are the route that you have assessed. And if you do need to add any additional information, any additional comments, please, I highly recommend it, adding in all of that additional information. Okay, and you can see there you've got quite a lot of characters and a lot of space there that you can utilize. Okay, and then just saving that detail. So just to go over the other tabs here quickly, we were utilising the layers tab, which is very, very helpful. All of the approved network layers that you find in here are actually secondary to the state jurisdiction map. So currently, the point of truth for approved networks and the enforceable network is the state jurisdiction network. Okay, so the information we have in the portal is dependent on the state jurisdictions giving us their data. So there could be a delay in the accuracy, and that's why we say that the networks in the portal at the moment are only just for reference. The point of truth, you must be going and checking your state jurisdiction heavy vehicle approved network maps. Okay, but you can see some of the other networks here like state roads, the bypasses, points of interest, any of that additional information that's to offer in layers in the NHGR portal. The other tab here is just the roads tab. So that's actually just giving you sort of the breakdown as to what road managers are affected and even the affected roads in here just as a bit of a list form. So you might get some unknown roads. That's all for the regulator to really, in their initial assessment, fix up and make sure the data that's been picked up is accurate. But just as a bit of an FYI to the customer, you can come and have a sticky beak in this section as well. Okay, but just making sure before I move on, I have selected that confirmation. Okay, so just to go over some of the important facts again, ensuring that whether it is a single trip or an area of operation, of course, selecting the correct route type, ensuring that where applicable, you have the exact start and finish location. So just to go over it one more time, an exact start and finish location must be an exact street number or a company name or a visual access point that we can visually see on the satellite view. So as an example, access to the quarry, access to the port, access to the forestry, access to the development site, access to the bridge construction. So anything that we can visually pick up and understand. Or as another alternative, you can also utilise that measurement tool to do an approximate distance measurement from a previous road or intersection. Also making sure that you do have the correct turn-by-turn description, and that may mean utilising the drag and drop functionality to make sure that the route is going the way it needs to go. And also, please just make sure that you are also considering and including heavy vehicle bypasses if applicable. So there is a layer in there called bypasses. You can turn that one on. Zooming into really, you're only going to find heavy vehicle bypasses for the rural towns there. So just making sure you're zooming into each town along the route and making sure you're including those heavy vehicle bypasses if applicable.